Hi guys, good morning and welcome to Java Spring training with MindMajix. And I have 15 years of IT experience, and pretty much during these years I have played multiple roles like a solution architect, team lead, project manager, and I think the biggest achievement that I think of myself is being motivator to juniors and new learners. So in this demo, we'll talk about why we need to learn Spring, why Spring is so much in buzz these days. And then we'll go through Spring architecture overview. We'll also cover the dependency injection concepts, which is one of the powerful capability that Spring holds. And then we'll also go through Spring MVC, which is one of the strong web framework that has been used in industry to build complex web applications. And then we'll go a bit of on hands-on, and trust me, we'll not go with hello world. This time we'll try to give you some more conceptual MVC architecture. So the overall course outline we can talk about is we'll go through introduction. We'll just get a details about Spring, what is the framework overview, what are its advantages, and where all we can use Spring, and where all we should use it as a back end, where we should use it as a front end. And we'll talk about different modules of Spring, and we'll also cover IOC module, which is one of the powerful module, and we can also call it dependency injection. We'll go through some development items like hello world example, and then different scopes in a bean, like if you have to create a DAO layer, what should be your bean scope? If you have to create a service layer, what should be? So we'll talk about all those concepts, and then also go through the life cycle of bean. Like in older days, we have to pretty much maintain all the objects and its creation, deletions. But with Spring, we have a lot of capabilities. So we'll see how Spring itself manages the life cycle, and then we'll talk about one of the strong capabilities, wiring, that makes developers life very easy. So we'll talk about this, and then we'll go through different dependency injection processes and how we can do remote method invoking through Spring. And then we'll cover Spring, how Spring can connect with relational database, what are the best practices. We use Spring build JDBC libraries to call DAO, or how we can iterate if any data comes from database. What is the best way to iterate through that data utilizing Spring libraries? So we'll go through all these concepts, and we'll also cover ORM module, which is very much these days we use in the industry projects. So we kind of create a middle layer, which is like an ORM layer, which talks with the database, so that we don't have to worry about too much programming our code as per the database structure. So that's the benefit of ORM, and Spring is one of the hot ORM tool. So we'll talk about it. Also talk about what all capabilities Spring inbuilt provides with that. And then we'll cover AOP module. So AOP is also one of the very strong capability in Spring, which is aspect oriented programming. So you can do a lot of things with that. Like let's say if you have to do some logging in your application, you don't want to go and log in each class, so you can use AOP module to have some smart configuration, and then it will automatically go and do all the logics. So we'll talk about different inceptors around it, and then we'll talk about MVC model, which is one of the most powerful web development tool getting used these days. So a lot of banking sites, a lot of admin sites use Spring MVC architecture because it's very powerful. It has a lot of security features also inbuilt, where it ensures that you're hitting the right URL, right person hits the right URLs, and you don't have to do too much coding in it. So it also provides annotation capabilities. Then any client, if hitting any request, how Spring inbuilt servlets can handle all those things, and how Spring different holds different components, like your UI is a view, and your middle layer is controller, and then your data is captured in model. So how Spring follows MVC architecture. We'll talk about these things, and then how Spring searches your view components, like it could be JSP, it could be other HTML files. So we'll talk about those things. And obviously in production environment, we never have a full-fledged code written. We have to provide a lot of things configurably, like there could be some properties, some settings that change environment to environment. Like in dev it could be some different database, or in production it could be different database. How we can configure those things, so we'll talk about those in message properties. And then exception handling, definitely some, if any issue comes, how smartly we can handle all those exceptions, so we'll talk about that. And definitely Spring come with a lot of validation capabilities, like in your form, if you fill something and some you're not following the right standards, let's say it's a password, you're not filling it in the right structure that they want, so how Spring can build those kind of validation inbuilt, and how it can make developers life easy not to do too much core logic development around that. And then how we can achieve same through annotations. So let's start this demo. Why to learn Spring? So Spring is very high performing, and it's easily testable and reusable code. So basically in Spring you don't have to write too much repeated code. So what it tries to direct you is that you do some development, and then that development should be existing like an independent identity. Like let's say if you have built some functionality, it can act as an independent functionality, and if you need to use that from some other component, you can easily use other component can easily utilize that functionality, and you don't have to tightly couple your logic with that thing. And then the most important capability it has is it's very lightweight. You don't have to do too much installation. It comes in a very light version, like the basic Spring version comes in 2 MB. And definitely Spring follows object oriented programming, and it always promotes developers to follow the best coding practices like Pujo programming. So whatever is your business use case, it is to make you think it like an object perspective. Like if you have some company, and you have to create its structure, so think like company, okay, one object, and then companies can have different departments, think department also like an object, and associate things like that. And then the biggest advantage in Spring is it has modular approach, so it doesn't forces you to use all its capabilities, but it kind of guides you. Whatever thing you want to use, you can just use that part and can ignore the other things. Like let's say in ORM you want to use Hibernate related things, so you can just use that ORM specific module. And let's say you're building some web chat, so you can pick up the web socket related module of Spring. So that's how you make decisions what type of module you want to choose based on your business requirement. And then it has capability to integrate with multiple systems, multiple ORM frameworks like Hibernate, MyBeta. So it has a lot of capabilities. And this is also one of the strong capability, transaction management. So in earlier days, or even in Hibernate, a lot of places you have to kind of manage your transaction. Like you have to decide, okay, now your transaction is getting called, or if any other error comes, do I need to roll back my changes? Or if it's a successful transaction, do I need to commit it? Do I need to close the database connection? So with Spring you don't have to worry about any of this. So Spring has very strong transaction libraries. So all you have to do is just provide, okay, what type of need you have. So let's say you have a specific need where you're making one database call, and you're doing operation in database, and after that you want to do again another call, and you want to ensure if both these calls passes, then only your change should be committed. So with Spring it has a lot of such capabilities, like you can isolate, you can make transaction as a nested also. Like you're saying, in our case we want nested transaction. So basically when you mark transaction as nested, it will ensure if both transactions pass, then only it should commit, otherwise it should not let commit any of the transaction. And then we'll talk about web framework, how MVC architecture helps us build a smart web framework, and how you can create your web framework in a clean structured way where you can easily separate out your model, view, and controller concept. So let's say today you're building an application and you're using JSP, okay, as a front end. So your view is kind of built through JSP logic. And then in near future, let's say you want to upgrade your application to some mobile driven technology and you want to use Angular. So all you have to do is you just have to change your view part. You don't have to change your business logic in, in model or in controller. So that's the benefit Spring gives, that you can choose what component you want and specifically you can build your functionalities. So this is a quick overview of Spring architecture. As we already talked few things about it. So Spring framework gives you different layers. Like it has database access layers, like we already talked about, ORM features, transaction features, JDBC. So whatever feature you want to use, you can pick that particular module. And then the website, whatever, like WebSocket, if you're building some web chat, you can use WebSocket. If you want to do some custom implementation of your servlet, you can also use its servlet module. And similarly you can use its web also. And then it has some out of the box capabilities also, like aspects, eop programming. So these modules, based on your need, you can pick and you can utilize it. So in this course we'll talk more detailed about each aspect of each module. We'll talk about it. So I'm just giving you a high overview here. And then we have this core containers. Core container is the most important part, where we need to have these core containers like beans. So basically using bean component, Spring itself internally managing all the bean life cycle, how an object should be created, how it should be destroyed. So pretty much Spring will take care of this. And context is like how your two objects talking to each other and how it's getting saved in the context, application context. Is it a singleton type, like is it a database connection that you just want to create only once, or is it kind of a request type, like in each request you have to create new? So all these things are managed through this. And then they have this test framework also, where you can plug in different testing systems like JUnits or test ng's, selenium. So whatever you want to configure it, you can configure it using that. So let's understand the before Spring complexities. So let's consider this business use case. Okay, you have a use case where you need to create an employee structure. Okay, somebody uh, told you to build an employee object and just try to capture employee logic in your business. So you said, okay, let me just build a class employee, and we know employee contains few details like first name, last name, and then you created its constructor, and you have getters and you have setters in it. And the way you call it, the old traditional ways, you will make an instance of it, employee emp, and then you put its name and an object is created. And in memory, what really is happening is in the heap memory, so that emp reference is actually pointing to an employee object, and then whatever the fields employee object is holding, first name and last name, they are also pointing to some string in the memory. So then you got a new requirement where they say, okay, employee generally belongs to some department, so we should also capture a department information, like is this or like to know which department this employee belongs. So we thought, okay, let's just create a department class, and we know department has a name. We can have few more things like cost center, department IDs, but just let's take simple example where we are just capturing department name. And now we need to associate department with an employee. So we create a field instance of department class, and we say, okay, department, and then we set it through setter and getter. We can fetch that information. And our code, now we need to create an department instance first. Like let's say an employee belongs, Sachin belongs to a HR department. So first we are creating a department HR, and then we are setting employee department information as HR. So in memory, what really is happening is department instance got created. It has a department, it's referring to a department object, and then inside department object it has its name field that is also pointing to some string HR. And in employee object is started getting complex, like it has a department field that's pointing to another object. And maybe at this point you feel accomplished. Okay, I have created a good employee structure and I'm good. Okay, I'm doing good development here and I have written my logic. But in real scenarios, like in real enterprise applications, your business use case is not that easy. So think like this: if somebody comes to you and says, "No, no, department also has a lot of roles. Like IT department can have different roles, like admin or developer role or manager roles." So new thing come into picture, role. Okay, then you have to build role, and you also need to capture how this role is mapped to an employee. And then somebody says, "Okay, admin role can also have a lot of permission, so we also want to capture that permission." So think like this: your requirement will keep on getting complex and your core logic will start getting very tightly coupled. Like to build an employee object, you really have to go through creating so many different objects, and you need to set so many different objects in it, and it will start getting tough to manage your application. So thanks to Spring dependency injection, that came as a savior to such problems, and that's why it's so powerful. So in Spring dependency injection, what really happens is it says, okay, whatever is your business logic, you just keep on building your business logic, whatever things you want to capture. So let's say you want to capture employee, department, role, permission. So just start creating your classes like that. And Spring says, I will manage the bean creation, I will manage all the object creation. So Spring itself creates all the different objects internally, and it will say you don't have to worry about creating its constructor, or creating employee constructor, then setting it in department field. You don't have to worry, just blindly create whatever your entities, and I will just create objects for it. And then let's say you got a requirement, okay, employee, I want to capture it, department information also. So then all you have to do is just auto wire it. So with this auto wire tag, what we are trying to do is we are trying to inject that department object to employee. So in earlier example, we were employee object is trying to reach to the department object to get that information. But here it's happening oppositely. It has created all the objects, and then whatever you want, it will just inject it. It will give you that. Spring will give you that. So you don't have to really worry too much about it. So let's say in future your requirement changes, you have to build role, you can also auto wire it, and it will inject. And accordingly, and you can also decrease it also. Let's say your requirement got changed and you said, no, we don't want to capture permission. So think like that. How easy for you is to maintain a code also. Like you can add, you can remove very easily, and your code is very loosely coupled. So that is one of the strong capability in Spring. So let's talk about Spring MVC. So it's mainly used for web applications. And think like this: if somebody has built a web application using Spring MVC, how your flow will go. Like a client is can be a person, or you can consider it as a browser, and you hit some URL on top of it, of your application. Let's say you say, okay, I want to log in, slash login is your URL. So that request goes to the dispatcher servlet. So dispatcher servlet is one of the powerful servlet that Spring provides internally, and its role is to kind of handle the user requests and then return back the responses. So dispatcher then calls the moves the request further to the handler mapping. So this handler mapping is nothing, it's just way to decide, okay, to which controller I have to give. So just example, like you're hitting a slash login URL, so it should go to the login controller. But if you say slash admin, so it should go to the admin controller. So that's how it's trying to decouple your business logic and trying to separate it based on different types of controller. So let's say you're hitting slash reports, so it should go to the reports controller. So based on this handler mapping, it tells, okay, this is the appropriate controller. And then dispatcher servlet specifically calls that controller. And then in controller, basically we can write our business logic, like whatever. Let's say somebody has given a login information, user ID and password, so we can do all those checks inside it, like is it a valid user, or what screen it is trying to use, or what data we need to provide it. So all that business logic and fetching anything from database will go post controller. So controller will make call to a service layer. So in generally in service layer we can write some business logics, and then a DAO layer where it will go and query database, and then it return back the output. So controller basically prepares the model. So when we say model is nothing, it's just a data that it kind of processed from backend or service layer, and it wants to show this data to the user. So it throws back the model. And also the view. So view is nothing like if you're hitting a login page, so what page should appear after that? So that is basically controller is returning, like based on your request, what page I want to return you. So it will return a view. And then view resolver will decide, okay, is it a valid view? Like let's say your application only supports .htmls and you're hitting some URL slash login.json. Okay, so view in view resolver you must have these kind of logics like, okay, is it a valid request coming, or if controllers are returned back home page, so it will go and search only homepage.html. It will not expect you to give back homepage.json, because that's the way you have built your application, that it should only show HTML pages. So all those decisions happen at view resolver layer, and then it returns back the view page basically. And in view page basically, whatever model controller has given, that model basically it's a data, that data we use, and in that or whatever is your page, we go and prepare that information in that page, and accordingly we respond back response to end user. So this is an overall understanding for Spring MVC. So let's go to a demo where you can get more insights how Spring framework can be created. So let's say you have Eclipse installed in your system, and we'll go and create a new dynamic web project. We call it Hello Web. Go next. So we'll add a source. So generally we use source folder for all your code logics, and your output folder. So output folder basically means where you will store all your classes. And so generally we this is a best practice, like we use source for keeping all our controller, service layer, database layer code inside it, and then all the compiled code goes in the target. And then we'll provide the content directory, like where your all the JSPs configurations will go, and we select this web.xml because this is the starting point to start any web application, web.xml. So we'll select it so that we get a default, and then we'll change it accordingly. So it's installing the relevant modules required around it, and it might take a bit of time. Okay, so we can have a look at the project structure here. So we created, if you remember, we provided this web as a web content. So that's why our web INF and everything went inside it. And at the moment, we don't have any library, but we definitely need Spring library. So we'll talk about it later. And then we got the web.xml. So this is the starting point where any web application kind of looks for this file. And then source is at the moment empty, where we'll put all our business or controller, DAO, or data model, all those logics will go here. We'll just change this default one to what we want to build here. So basically what we're trying to do here is we're trying to create a servlet mapping. So what we are saying is, if in your application somebody hits this slash URL, or you can also put like slash star.jsp, means any JSP, if somebody is trying to hit any JSP under your application, then you need to look to this servlet. So at the moment, let's take it simple, like any slash, if somebody hits any slash, so it will go and it will match this servlet name here in the servlet mapping, and we can see this hello web is mapped to this dispatcher servlet, and we can see it's pretty much what Spring has given us, dispatcher servlet. So if any request comes from the front end, like in the browser, we hit slash and any URL further it, so it goes here and then it hits here. Okay, and after that, what happens is it looks for a file, and it generally in that file basically you have all your beans related configurations. So we'll create one file here. The point to be noted here is if you don't want to do any kind of mapping of this file in this file, so generally you have to keep servlet name exactly matching and then hyphen servlet. So internally Spring itself assumes, okay, there is some file created of this name, hello web hyphen servlet. So if you want to choose any other name, then you have to do some more configurations here where you need to provide it some paths. So at the moment we'll try to keep it simple. We'll make Spring do the most of the work. So in this file, we can see initially we have just decided all the Spring context and different like what version we are using. So at the moment 3 we are using. We can also change it to 4 or 5 based on what versions you want to use. And then we have this component scan thing added. So I will talk about it later. And we can just focus on this. So here we are using internal resource view resolver. So basically this view resolver is making decision when any request comes and it goes controller and controller gives you back something. So where should I look for files? So basically it's telling you, okay, go to this folder webinf JSP and whatever the name. So let's say controller is giving you back name hello, or let's say home page. So it will, with resolver, what will happen, it will go to webinf slash gsp slash and it will look for hello homepage dot jsp file. So obviously we don't have any such structure, so we'll just go and create new folder here, and we can create one file here, student gsp. So basically this is our first page, and here we are trying so I'll talk about it a bit later, but just at the moment you can just understand that this is our first page, and then we're creating another which is kind of our result page. We'll talk in detail once we build our controller and kind of understand. So at the moment just assume you have two js, basically two views, and with from one view you're going to another view, but at the moment these two jsps are just like idle. They have no connection to the core business logic, so we have to make the connection. So we'll first go and create a class. This always a best practice that you should always define a package, and package should be like your whatever is your organization name com dot app dot, and then if you're making controller, try to move it into controller package. Let's say my controller, and then we'll also create another class which is your basically storing your data. So generally we use data model, package name, and then let's say our student. So student, so basically what we are trying to do here is we are trying to create one data model which will be used to capture any information. So student can have, let's take simple example, student can have name, student can have let's say with subject, generate getters and setters. So we're good here. Now this is our core logic and controller. Now you can see our code is failing, like it's not compiling because at the moment we have not used any Spring libraries, Spring. So we need to provide it Spring jar, that we can just go to properties and in Java build path. So here we have source, like source folder, and inside libraries tab generally we go and add external jars. And then I have downloaded these Spring jars and it's pretty much online. So you can just go and search Spring jars, you will find all those things. So you can see here, like Spring has different jars based on what kind of requirement you have. So definitely beans we always require, and web is also required, and core is also required, context is required. But like we are building MVC architecture here, so we need the Spring MVC architecture. And this AOP, we are not doing anything at the moment for AOP, so we can skip this for. But at the moment, I'll just pick all these. But that's the benefit of Spring. You can choose whatever you want to use. So now we can publish this and can start our server. So we'll talk about this model in JSP once we start the server and get a feel of the application. So in this demo, we are using JBoss server, but you can use any server like Tomcat or, and pretty much Eclipse gives you all these plugins, and you just need to right click and do new and server, and then you can choose whatever server you want to add, like Wildfly, and it also has Apache Tomcat. So just choose whatever you want. So at the moment, I'm using Wildfly as it's one of the mostly used in enterprise applications in most of the companies. Okay, so we can see we got some error here. So we have libraries set up. That's good. We have our web.xml set up, servlet set up, we have JSP set up. So let's try to clean build it. So with clean build, what happens is your previous war, maybe it's using, okay. So it's saying class not found or dot dispatcher servlet. Okay, so we can also troubleshoot a bit why it's not coming, even though we have this jar Spring MVC. So it looks like it's not picking up jars. So maybe in the class path also we can, and in the deployment assembly also we can check. So generally we are deploying it as a war. In the deployment assembly also we can check slash web. Okay, we have this web context setup. We'll just start hello web.war. Okay, so you can see we are using 4.2.6. Okay, and here we are saying different version. Okay, that could be the issue. Similarly, we'll check beans one, the clean build again. So this is a real example. That's how we feel while doing development. We never get in one go or solution. So we have to do some hit and trials. handler is also building all the URL paths. So if I just talk about controller part, so controller is basically holding the core logic, like how our URLs will come and go. And if you just see from the start, like if anybody hits the slash URL, okay, so our application is failed because we have not mapped. So we have given the right URL, but we have not mapped any slash test in our controller side. So dispatcher is not able to take the decision like to which controller should I give. If I just go and see my controller, so I have this slash student link there. So we can use the slash student link, and we can see our form has came. So this is our first page. So what really happened is we hit a URL slash and then student, and our web.xml checked first. Okay, are we following the right pattern? Yes, slash is there after hello web, and then it goes to dispatcher servlet. Dispatcher servlet goes to controller. Internally it's checking the mappings, what all mappings are available, and it finds a slash student is there, and it goes to this particular method. And here you can see we are trying to create a new student object. Okay, so if you remember, with Spring we really don't need to go and create like this objects. So we have a model here student, and we are trying to create a new. So what we can do, we can also skip this, and we can also do it like this. And we can import its annotation. So this is also another way. Continue. So this is also another way you can go and inject it. So at the moment what we are saying just hit this and create an empty object. So we have not put anything object. Okay, so it's just going, and you can see we have also mentioned this slash student. So basically when we are hitting this URL, we are trying to say, okay, go to this view slash double quote student. And in our web servlet, basically resolver, view resolver, what it will do, it will go path slash webinf slash JSP, and it will check, do I have any student, and then dot JSP name. So we have this JSP name. So it will go and prepare this one. So you can see it prepared this pretty much JSP name, student info. Student information is our header and name. And automatically what it did, it also, it's very smart. Like you have given in controller student object reference. So it internally started assigning that object fields with these fields. So at the moment we have not put in anything here. So our student object is also empty. So the moment I put here anything like Anil and then Spring, okay, and when I hit submit button, what will happen is will go and submit this form. So basically this whole information I have written in one form. It's like a form. So form is basically used to submit some data, and that form gets activated. Like what next step we have to do is based on a submit action. So we have put one input type as submit, and then this value is nothing, it's just a display value of the submit button. And when we hit the submit type, what will go, it will make another call to our controller. So what will happen, it will make another URL here slash add student, and same process will happen. It will again go to web.xml. It will check, okay, path is given correctly. Dispatcher servlet goes to controller and see is there any such mapping, and it will find, okay, add student mapping is there, and it will jump here. And since we already filled the student object in this page, so basically our controller will take it as a model attribute. So model attribute is nothing, whatever we are trying to take from the screen. So here it will go and get student information, and we'll just use these name, and we can see here we have those student details. So if I just hit submit, I can see this name got printed, right? Name and this. So how it got printed? So here in the student, we got those information, and then we set it in some attribute name. Like you can have any logical name, like name one also, or subject one, or any name you can put it. And then this basically is returning another view result. So basically this is our result page. So how it's deciding, again it's going to servlet. Here it's web.inf, JSP and .jsp extension we need to add, and result. So it's going here result, and whatever logical name that we have given, like name one, student one, we have to just parse that information this page, and that's how our data is displaying. So pretty much that's how Spring framework works. Like this is a very high level, and in our whole course we'll go in more details. So in this course curriculum, we'll also cover real enterprise applications, and we'll go through complex projects. Like one is employee registration portal. So pretty much in many companies we have these custom portals where HR go and log in and kind of uh, fills all the new joiners information. And then we also have to secure our system. Like if somebody knows that information detail, we have to make sure, even if he knows the URLs, like he knows some HR admin URL, still he should not be able to go and start adding new employees. So we'll see how Spring security and approaches, how we can avoid those kind of things, like how we can make it our application more secure, and what are the best design practices we should follow pretty much to build whole our end-to-end application. And then obviously we created simple Java classes, but in reality we can have a lot of complexities. Like we might require a lot of other things also, like ORM tools and those things. So we cannot just go and keep on downloading libraries, okay, and putting it in our class path or jar. So we don't want to maintain all those overhead on us. So for that we have a very strong build tool, that is Maven, which is the most popular tool getting used in the industry. So we'll in this project we'll pretty much go through how Maven builds your war, how it finds all the dependencies, how two dependencies, let's say if two jars are conflicting, how we can avoid those conflicts. So we'll go through all those things. And we'll also use JBoss to deploy the server, because a lot of product based companies use this JBoss, and Wildfly is kind of JBoss latest version, Wildfly 23, 24. So we can take any version, and we'll go through the development of that. And then second one is web chat application. So we'll also create one application where it's a user interface web chat. Many people can come and can join and can chat with each other. You can also share that web chat URL link to somebody else. And pretty much when you know all the Spring concepts, then you will understand why Spring Boot is getting more you know more popular these days, how microservices concept built. And it's very important that we understand Spring advanced concepts, then only we can understand microservices. We can understand how Spring Boot started using Spring internal capabilities and made our life even more easier after that. And we'll with this web chat we'll explore WebSocket capabilities, and Maven, will use Maven to build the tool, and that's how we'll go. So pretty much these two projects will give you a good insight of how enterprise applications really work in production environment. And then the prerequisite is just we should have Windows machine 7 or above. So generally these days people have at least 9 or 10, so prefer that. And then we should have a good hard disk, and memory is very important because we are running Eclipse. We will also see how we can make REST APIs. So Spring is not always used for building web portals. We can also build just the backend, like a REST API kind of thing, where you can give APIs. So we'll use different tools, like Postman is very popular, even SOAP UI. So we'll go through most freewares and popular tools that are used in the market. So we'll go through them. So definitely we need a good amount of memory. So try to have at least 8 GB in RAM you should have, and it's good if you have 16, but yeah, at least 8 should be there. And then CPU cores. I think mostly latest laptops or 1 2 year old laptops have all these setups, and then we'll go step by step. We'll install Eclipse, and we'll go step by step how we can set up our lab. And then through this course, I will also guide you through common interview questions being asked, because I have 15 years of experience and I have worked in almost 5 6 different organizations. So I know, and pretty much I am from Java background, so I know what kind of questions we ask. Even I have also taken a lot of interviews for my team, from for different team. So I know how we kind of how important it is to have clear concepts. So rather than just going through terminologies, it's always good to have internal understanding. So that's what we try to cover in this whole course, that you get a good core concept understanding. And trust me, when you have good concepts, it acts like a seed. Like, you will yourself start exploring more and more, and that's what really interviewers look during interview time, that how clear you are with your concepts, and can they really confuse you with few conditions and those things. And we'll share with you some useful practice links, and uh, some more tutorials, advanced tutorials. If somebody wants to practice more, I'll share all the materials with you guys. And then once you will complete this course, you will get one certificate from MindMajix. It's like an achievement, and I think it will definitely make you guys feel proud that you have whatever technology you have been really to achieve. Maybe obviously when you will join this course, you will join with some expectations. So definitely, once you will get this certificate, you will realize you really have been reached to that level where you can go and explore opportunities in market, and get spring related opportunities, maybe within the organization, outside organization, or freelancing, or whatever direction you want to go. So thanks guys, thanks for watching this demo, and more details can be found from here. Thanks a lot.